found out that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other famous personalities like Jyotiraditya Scindia, Harish Salve and famous investors like Madhusudan Kela and Radhakishan Damani, these people have unclaimed shares and dividends lying with IEPFA. IEPFA meaning Investor Education Protection Fund Authority. It's a government body that administers unclaimed shares and dividends lying with this authority. Now today I have with me Advocate Ankit Garg. He is founder of Garg Law Chambers. He will tell us all about what really do we mean by unclaimed shares and dividends, when do we declare it unclaimed, and what really is IEPFA.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Aprajita. So, I'm surprised that such famous personalities have unclaimed shares. I mean, your research is excellent. As a starting point, I would like to first explain unpaid dividends because that is the crux of unclaimed shares.
Okay.
So, what happens is all profit-making companies, when they declare dividends, those dividends have to be encashed by the investors in 30 days.
Okay.
If those dividends are not encashed within the 30 days, after 7 days, those dividends have to be transferred to a specific bank account called the unpaid dividend account.
All right.
This is as per section 124 of the Companies Act. So what happens is, as per section 124 and 125, if an investor does not claim dividends for 7 consecutive financial years, then the shares which are pertaining to those dividends have to be transferred to a body called the Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority.
Right.
Earlier, there used to be an Investor Education and Protection Fund under old Companies Act 1956, and it was formulated in 2000. But the authority was further given powers and incorporated in 2016. And the first lot of shares started going to this authority in 2017.
Okay.
So I will re-explain. People who are not claiming dividends for 7 consecutive years, their shares start going to the Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority.
And also dividend, because those are unclaimed, so those shares and the dividend amount, everything will pass on to
Yes,
IEPFA.
a dividend goes to IEPFA's dividend account when 7 years have lapsed. Somebody has not claimed a specific year's dividends for 7 years, that dividend will be transferred after 7 years.
Okay.
But if he collects or encashes dividend of the next year, then that dividend will not go.
Got it.
It is only for a particular year dividend which stays unpaid for 7 years and lies in the unpaid dividend account maintained with the company.
Right.
The company is supposed to transfer it to the IEPFA after 7 years.
Correct. And 2017 is when IEPFA was formed.
2016.
So 2016.
Yes.
So it has unclaimed shares since which year?
Since 2017. The first lot was transferred to the IEPFA after 31st October
So
2017.
beginning from 2010 is when 2010 and 2017 those unclaimed shares now with
Yes,
IEPFA.
for dividends which were unpaid from 2010 to 17 consecutively, the shares were first transferred in 2017.
Okay, and before 2010, what about those shares? So those are not.
Earlier only dividends used to go to the IEPFA.
Okay.
There was no concept of shares being transferred to the
Okay,
IEPF
so what
authority.
happens in those cases pre 2010?
No, so once somebody claims their dividends from the government body, they can claim even the past year's dividends.
Okay.
Once they do paperwork with the company, a company gives confirmation that these are the pending dividends which we have transferred to the government body, and now you can claim them.
Okay, and shares will still pre 2010 shares will
Shares
still be
were still
company.
with the investors.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
So it is not that shares were with the company.
Okay. Shares are with investor, dividends are unpaid, so obviously that will go to the authority.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and does it only happen in cases where people have bought physical shares or also with demat account?
No. The law does not differentiate between physical shares and shares which are in the demat account.
Okay.
So, for example, demat was introduced in India in the late 90s. Bank accounts used to be linked to those demat accounts, and dividends used to go either to the address of the investor or to the bank account linked to the demat account via ECS mandate.
Right.
So what happens in certain scenarios, even dividends were going to the houses of those investors having shares in demat form, but those people were not encashing it due to one or the other reason.
Okay.
Maybe it was a small amount, or they had moved their address and did not update it to the demat depository, or perhaps that investor had passed away. So even those shares which are in demat and dividends are not claimed for 7 consecutive years, shares from the demat automatically goes to the IEPF authority.
Okay, got it. And if one has to look for it, that whether they have unclaimed shares lying maybe their own shares or of their family members, then how can they do that?
First and foremost, they should go to the IEPF authority's website.
Yeah.
They have created a portal whereby
Database.
one can put the first name, middle name and last name of their family members and try to filter out whether any shares are reflected there by looking at the addresses which are recorded.
And I
Sometimes
believe name and location is, you can use it multiple times, but if you are going by PAN number, then you have certain attempts that you will have
yeah,
to-
that is the new portal. Earlier, a couple of years back, there was no limitation. One
Okay.
could search endlessly for any a number of investors and any number of shares.
Correct. But now
so
only
the new portal,
will
I
be
think there's a
available.
limit of 10 search entries which you can do and open.
With PAN number.
So that is a bit of a backtrack, but
hindrance.
it would have helped for especially old senior citizen investors who used to invest in multiple companies.
Right.
So it will be very difficult for those investors to
Look for
for those shares on this portal. However, as per the Companies Act, all the companies listed in India are required to publish data of unpaid dividends on their website.
Okay, so every company will have that data. So one
Every
can go
company
and
should
check.
have that data, but it is a humongous task for any investor to look at
So
2,000,
many
3,000
list of
listed
investors.
companies and check their websites and find out whether their themselves or their ancestors had any shares which are lying unclaimed.
Correct, which is
Yeah.
why one has to rely on IPFA body, but they have this restriction of 10.
Correct.
But I believe it's only when there are three ways to look for the data, and the first one is when you are simply putting your name and location. So I have used that more than 10 times. So that can be used, I think, multiple times, but going by PAN.
Yeah, going
then
by
you
PAN
have
once you,
restriction,
yeah.
and then you also have an option to look for it via folio number. And
Yeah, but if an investor knows the folio number, then there's no
Then
point of
no
looking on the
point to
website.
look at it.
That
They
means
can
they have the
directly reach
details
out.
and they can directly contact the company or the registrar
Correct.
and transfer agent.
Correct. Thank
Yes.
you so much for sharing this
Please, no
information.
worries.